Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Side Hustle Ideas. I am Bill, the company's expert. We're actually a minute early today. A minute early. It's an oh my God, we're live type situation. Thank you for being here. This is the weekly live stream I do, or podcast, if you will, where we talk about entrepreneurship, the wonderful world of business, startups, side hustles, and the entire concept of making money directly. Okay. Not going through an intermediary like an employer. If you've ever had a job, you may have you may have heard of these things. You may know someone who has a job. If you've ever had a job, you know what I'm talking about. You're not actually making money directly. The employer is making money by selling something to customers, and they've got a little side deal going with you where you do a little bit of work for them and they give you money in exchange for your time and your effort due to some prearranged contract that you have with them. So you're kind of sheltered from the whole making money thing, okay, directly. You're not actually providing something of value directly to a customer. You're just working for an employer, and they're the ones that are providing value to customers. So they understand the ins and outs of how to provide value for customers, how to get them to pay them, all that kind of stuff. Okay. And you are sheltered from that. And this is kind of a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing in the sense that you don't have to learn business concepts. Okay. So I suppose that's good in a sense. You don't have to worry about it. You could just get on with doing what it is you do. But the bad side is that you don't know business concepts. You don't know how to turn your value directly into money. And if you suspect that you are capable of delivering a lot of value, and you feel that an employer is paying you only for a fraction of that value, then it's within your own interest to perhaps learn some of these concepts. And you will have a lot more options available. For a start, you will not have to worry about a job as a way of making a living. You can just make a living directly. You don't have to rely upon anybody's permission for you to make money. You can just do it yourself whenever you want and how you want. And if you make good decisions and you work hard at it, you can make a pretty damn good living. It may even be possible for you to break through that invisible cap, that barrier that prevents you from being extraordinarily, what's the word? It's Monday morning. I don't have the words. I didn't wake up that long ago, so my brain, the part of me that thinks of vocabulary in a lexicon hasn't really woken up yet. But you could be very prosperous, put it that way. So that's what we're here to talk about. Now, the title of today's episode is The Basics of Business. So you guys are here, presumably, because you want to hear some basics, and that's why I'm here. But first, I want to thank everybody who is supporting my channel. Everybody who's here. There are 16 of you fine people here. Thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. There is a chat. Now, no sooner have I said that than it went down to 13, but that's okay. There is a chat. You should hopefully be able to see the chat. You can get in the chat at any time and ask me questions. Ask me what you're struggling with, what you want to know. And this is primarily a sort of Q&A type thing. So don't be too shy to do that. I want to thank all my subscribers, all my members of my channel on YouTube here. You guys are awesome. And I want to thank my, what do you call them? Patreons or patrons, Patreons. If you're in the UK, you would say Patreons, I think. But thank you for your support. You guys are awesome. And if you have any requests on what to talk about or a title for a show, let me know that too. I need a gimmick. People that go out and put themselves out there usually have some kind of a gimmick, whether they admit to it or not. So let me know your suggestions, what I should do. For my other live stream, How to Get Hired, which I do after this one every week, I was thinking of putting the chime, right? You can have a chime maybe over here. And whenever somebody says that they got a job, partly because of my channel, I could ring the chime. Ding, you got a job. Right on, right? Or I could, any other gimmick. I could do the entire show with a crocodile. Who knows? Let me know your suggestions. Okay, now I've found that it's better for me to react to something than to just go on a monologue. So until we get any questions, I am going to start today's stream off with looking up the basics of business, and we're going to react to some of these things. So the basics of business. Here I am at your friendly neighborhood Google. And here we go. Okay, because there's a lot of interesting things on the internet, and there's a lot of information. Usually a lot of it is misinformation. Let's go through this and see what people are saying here. Okay, the 4 basics for starting a business this is starting a business, okay? Your business name, business structure, business registration certificate, and all your other licenses. Okay, so this was probably written by an accountant or an administrator or bureaucrat of some kind. This stuff, if you are actually thinking of starting up a business, this stuff is irrelevant in the beginning. Okay, it is not the first step. It is nowhere close to your first step when starting a business. Okay, there is absolutely no point to doing any of this bureaucracy, if you can't make any money. If you can't make money, if you can't sell your thing, then what the hell does any of this matter? It matters for nothing. It just takes up your time. And unless you're the person that really, really gets off on filling out forms, hey, they exist. I know a few people like that. But if that's you, then hey, all the more power to you, whatever floats your boat. But for regular people, don't start with this stuff. This is not the core of what business is. It's certainly not the first step. And it's nothing you need to worry about anywhere near the beginning. Okay. If you, let me put it this way. If you stumble across a formula, you offer something for sale and a ton of people buy it and they pay you full price and they want more, that's a good problem to have. Then you can start worrying about things like this, business licenses and things like that. That's when it might make sense to start doing this stuff, okay? Because there's a purpose. Okay, it's not just bureaucracy for bureaucracy's sake. What else do we have here? We got some articles, but I like these things here when, they're just answered directly in Google. We should do one of these with ChatGPT sometime. Instead of just spending all the time in Google, we should try ChatGPT. Anyway, okay. So here's another thing to start with here. People also ask, what are the 4 basics? Oh, it's the same thing to start up a business, but it gives you a different answer. The successful small business must have 4 things in their corner, okay? Product, market, money, and people. Well, you see, once again, a lot of these things are written by people that I suspect have never actually started the business. They may have worked in a business. They might have worked for, a large enterprise or something. But I highly suspect they haven't actually started a business themselves, because they wouldn't be saying this kind of stuff if they had. Okay, listen, you need basically 2 things, okay? So product. Now, product could also be a service, right? It's product/service. The 2 of those things together are called an offering, okay? So you have an offering. Either you could sell products, something you make, and you sell them by the unit, or you could offer services where, you provide a service and you offer it in units of time, right? Or you could provide some combination thereof. You have a product and a service, okay? So for example, if you order if you hire someone to go and, let's pretend you have a house or something and you have a lawn and a garden, and you pay a company to come and maintain your garden, okay? Your lawn. They cut the grass and they fertilize the soil and they trim the plants or whatever, right? So they're providing a service, but they're also essentially selling you products. They're putting fertilizer down, right? So you're buying the fertilizer and you're paying them to apply it. So it's an offering. It's a combination of a product and a service, okay? So yes, you do need something, okay? Yeah, to sell some kind of offering, either a product or service, and market. Now, what I suspect they mean by this is marketing. Okay, marketing. This is the whole how to sell it thing. Okay, marketing is more than just sales. It's more than just going out and trying to drum up sales. Marketing involves the entire process. It's technically, marketing is the scientific study of groups of customers or potential customers. Okay, that's what marketing is. It's an extremely important area of business. It's one of the 2 most important areas, operations and marketing. So marketing, it starts with like, who would want my thing? Like if I'm selling something, who would want it? That's the first question you got to answer. If you're providing a service to maintain lawns or something, you don't want to go and advertise to people that live in apartments and don't even have a lawn, obviously, right? The next question would be, of the people who have lawns, where are those people and how do I reach them and what do I say to them? Right? So all of this is marketing, okay? Who are my potential customers? Where are they? How do I reach them? And what's the best way to convince them to do business with me? Okay? Maybe they already have a lawn company that they're happy with. In that case, just me simply telling them that I'm here and I do this might not cut it. I have to say something additional. I have to say how I'm better than other people or, whatever. All of that is marketing. Okay. So those are kind of the two things. So coming back to this, maybe I can make this bigger. There we go. So if you're on the internet and you're about 98 years old and, now you can see the text. Okay. So you got your product, you got your market, money and people. Okay, well, first of all, if you're starting out, you don't really need people. It's going to be you. Okay, and I highly recommend that. Even if you had the occasion or the opportunity to hire a bunch of people, I would not do it. I would do it yourself, and there's a very good reason for that. It's not just because I'm a cheapskate, and I would recommend this. It's because you need to understand intrinsically every aspect of your business. If you're going to be running it, you've got to understand it yourself. What better way to do that than for you to do it? Okay. So you do it yourself. I don't care if it's a lawn care company. You provide the lawn care. Okay. How are you supposed to make the right decisions if you yourself have never mowed a lawn or you haven't mowed a lawn in this operation? How would you know that? In the beginning, you need to do that. You need to see what the actual challenges are, where the rubber meets the road, and then you can make some intelligent decisions about what should be done, right? So there's no substitute for doing it yourself, okay? Once you've done it for a bit, you know what you're doing, then later on, if circumstances allow, you may choose to hire other people and have them do things for you, okay? But in the beginning, you got to do it yourself. Okay, now, money, no. You see, that is the traditional way entrepreneurship worked. The traditional way entrepreneurship worked was that you would put the money first. You would first get some kind of financing. Okay, you get money from somewhere. Either you put up your own money, or you take out a loan, or it's kind of much more rare, but you get investors. But you come up with a bunch of cash and then you spend the money to get the business operation up and running. Okay, so if it's a lawn care company, you would go and buy lawnmowers and a truck and, pay someone to create your logo and your branding and all this kind of stuff, right? That's traditionally how you would do it. The problem with that method is that if you've guessed wrong, and let's say you can't make money in the lawn care business, if that's what you started. The problem then is that you've just spent all this money, you've gone into debt, or you've borrowed other people's money, or you've put up your own money, and poof, it's all gone. In a puff of blue smoke, you just lost all your capital investment. Okay, so you bought lawnmowers, you paid people to do signs, you bought a truck, whatever. And the business failed. You can't actually make money the way you thought you could. And, sometimes people try and scramble to try and pivot and tweak the thing. Sometimes you can do that. Sometimes you can't, because if you have no money coming in, you run out of money and you're dead in the water. Then you have to liquidate. So you sell the truck, you sell the lawnmower, and all the money that you put into people designing logos, that's just gone. Okay. So that's the old way. Okay. That's traditionally how entrepreneurship worked. However, that's not the way I recommend, and that's not the way it works in this new age, the new age being the internet age. So we're well into that new age, okay? Certainly ever since social media came along, there's other ways of starting up companies. Now, if you want proof of what I'm saying, just look at YouTube channels, right? How much does a YouTube channel cost to start up? Zero, right? But there's YouTubers in this world that are millionaires, they're making tons of money. They didn't invest a ton of money to start it up. You didn't need like $500,000 to start up this YouTube business. They just started it up and put some time into it. and it started making money later. Okay. So that's an example, pretty obvious example of that. You don't need capital investment necessarily to start up a business. Okay. And that makes it really, really exciting, because if you know what you're doing, you don't need to start any kind of money to start up many types of businesses. So there you go. Trent Mears is here. So hello to Trent. Nice to see you get down to business. Well, thank you. Is that some kind of, I almost take that as some kind of shot that I never do. But anyway, I'll take it. Thanks for being here. If you have any questions, let me know. Okay, so this is the really exciting thing, is that you don't need a ton of capital investment to get into a business. You probably know people that are living examples of this. Like, say you have a skill or a talent or a profession, okay? Maybe, you know someone who's an accountant, and maybe they start their career by working in a large company. They get a job as a bookkeeper or an accountant in a large firm. And then after a while, they decide, I'm going to start doing accounting on my own. I'm going to open up a private accounting practice, right? I mean, lawyers do this, right? They go into private practice. Doctors do this. They go into private practice, right? So instead of doing your job for an employer, you do your job, the same job, for yourself, and bam, you're in business for yourself, right? Now, if you have a transportable skill like that, great, you could do that, okay? But what I think is really exciting is people who don't necessarily do that. They inject it with a bit of nitro, They kind of say, look, I've got this idea where I can take my talent and I can do this, and I'm not just going to make a living. I'm going to make a fortune, okay? Usually doesn't happen overnight, usually ramps up slow and steady, but it goes up exponentially. And it can be the way forward for you. You don't have to work for a company your entire life where they take 80% of your value and give you a measly 20%. You get to keep the whole thing. And if this stuff is exciting to you, and usually when you inject money into the equation, it becomes exciting for a lot of people. They think, if I get this right, I can make an extra $3,000 this month. If I get it wrong, I'll only make $500, but that's still good. And then if I do that correctly, maybe it goes to the next level. And if I get it right, I can make an extra $10,000 a month, and so on and so forth, right? So this is the exciting thing. It might not be exciting at the beginning, but once you inject cash into the situation, then it becomes a lot more exciting for a lot of people. So that's the thing. Anyway, let's get back to this business. Okay, so really you need these two things, okay? You need something to sell, and you need the marketing. The idea of, basically it's three questions. Who is my audience, like my target market, my customers? Who are they? How do I reach them? And what do I say to them? What message do I have to communicate to them to get them to buy from me, right? Now, message can mean a lot of different things, right? In some cases, it could be a literal message, like, you put a couple of sentences together. I offer this. It costs this. Here's how you buy it. It could be a picture. It could be a video of something that you did. You're demonstrating your product or service. And when people see it, they go, oh my God, I want that. Okay? Right? So the message could take many forms, and it could, almost an infinite number of permutations and combinations, what the message is. But marketing basically answers those three things. Who's my audience? How do I reach them? Or what's the best way to reach them? And what do I say? What's the message that I convey to them that gets them to want to do business with me? Okay, this is why you can see social media and stuff is extremely exciting, right? Because, everybody has, in the form of their computer or their phone, the ability to directly contact millions of people, right? It might take a little bit of knowledge of how specifically you do that, but you are capable of doing it from that device. Every single person, just a matter of knowing how, right? Now, if you could cultivate the skills of how to reach millions of people, knowing exactly what to say to them, what to send them, Could be a picture, could be a video, could be a text message, could be something else that gets them to line up with their wallets open, wanting to pay you. That's an incredible skill to learn. Let's say it took you 5 years to learn how to do that. Lots of trial and error, lots of learning about people, lots of learning about social networking, lots of learning about marketing. Okay, but imagine what you could accomplish at the end. It'd be pretty impressive, wouldn't it? Okay, so that's really the big one. Now, product. Okay, in order to make money, yes, you need to have some kind of offering, either a product or service or combination thereof. However, the big question is, do you need that in the beginning? Okay, if you're just getting started and you don't know if your idea is a hit or a miss, you don't know if it's a flop, you say, hey, I have this, and nobody gives a rat's ass, right? It falls flat. It falls on deaf ears, okay? Or you say, hey, I have this, and all of a sudden, people take notice, and people want to buy it, and people are asking you, how do I pay you? How do I get one, right? Okay, that's probably a good sign, right? Okay, now, if you're at the very beginning and you don't know if this idea you have is a hit or a miss, it's a success. What's the terms? A success or a failure, a flop, or I don't know, a hit. That's the only word I can think of. The question is, do you have to have created this to test the idea? And I say no. I go a step further and I say, look, you don't have to have created the idea to see if people will respond to it. What if you just created the message? Okay, you did a mock-up, a demo, right? A proposal, something like that. Now, what you would do with that is that you would market it. You'd put it out there. You'd say, here, I've got this, or I can provide this. Are you interested? And you see what the response is. And if nobody cares, nobody cares. It doesn't go any further. You haven't wasted your time and money creating this. It's beautiful. So mistakes are less costly and more quickly avoided and recovered from. Now, let's say you put something out there. You say, you do a mock-up. You say, here, I have this thing. Do you want it? And all of a sudden, everybody lines up and says, yes, I want it. I want to buy it. Right? Because you've said, here's what it looks like, here's what it does, here's how much it costs, and here's where you get it. Okay? And all of a sudden, people go there and they want to buy it. Okay? That's totally a legitimate way of doing things. What you can do is you can treat your customers the way stores treat you. If you go to a conventional brick and mortar store or an online store, what do? They charge you money up front. And then after you've paid them, they give you the product, right? They give you the thing. Okay, that's what happens when you go to the store. You can't walk out of the store with the product until you've paid for it. You got to pay it first, then we give it to you. That's how this works. When you order something online, that's how it works. You order first, you pay now, and then in 6 to 8 weeks or whatever it takes, with Amazon Prime, maybe 1 to 2 weeks, whatever, you get your thing, right? You got to pay first. So isn't that great? If it's something that you could create rather quickly, if you had a big demand for it, you could do that method. You could say, here, pay up front and then we'll send it to you. And let's say everyone and their brother orders one. You've got a ton of cash that you can use to then create this and start your operations, right? Whoops, there goes my thing. Right? So that's another possibility. Okay, of course you could create this first, but this is one way of doing it. If you don't know if it's going to be a success or not, you do the marketing first, and then if it's justified, then you create your offering, your product or service. Okay? If there is no demand, then you don't have to do this. You can avoid all the expense and time necessary. Here we go. This is from Ike, if I say that right. Ike Lennart Less. I'm an expert in mispronouncing names. I just want you to know. It comes from years and years of practice. Listening to you live, driving down the German Autobahn. Okay, well, is this where you get in your business car and go a million miles an hour? I'm working for a German car OEM in sales and strategy. How do you think roles like mine will be future-proofed using AI, big data, etc.? Okay, here we go. Are you ready for this? Okay, here's my opinion on AI, okay? Number one, it's a fantastic tool, and it will help in many, many ways. It will speed things up. It'll make things more efficient. It'll make things less frictional. Okay, so there's a lot of benefit to it. However, is it the be-all, end-all that will do everything for us and put everyone out of work? No. No. And in the future, it may turn into something that it isn't now. It may turn into something like truly where it can replace people in like a wide variety of roles. Certainly when it comes to, knowledge workers, people that work at a desk, right? But right now, or for the foreseeable future, it's basically dumb. Don't get me wrong, it's a great thing, and it's a major leap forward from what we had, say, last year. Okay, like in the world of the general public. Okay. However, I've been around the farm a bit. I'm not a young guy, and I've seen a lot of these technology waves come through. And there's always a pattern. The pattern is that everybody freaks out when something truly useful comes along because they think it's going to put everyone out of work. Okay, they were saying exactly the same thing about the internet when it came in, and many waves of the internet. This is the thing that will put everyone out of work, right? Now, has that happened? No, of course not. It's done quite the opposite. It's actually created so many more jobs for people, okay? Because it's so useful, it can do so many things. It opens up all these new things you can do, but we'll still need living, thinking people, at least until you have a computer that can replace an actual person, is just as creative and is just as savvy as people. And this isn't it. You know what I'm saying? It's certainly another step in that direction, but it's not there yet. So in your particular role, like in car sales or automotive sales, I don't think it's really gonna. Am I in that business? No, I'm not. But just my gut feelings, I don't think it's going to impact it that much. It'll give you some incredible tools to make things more efficient. Okay, it might be able to help you in your role and speed things up. Okay, and all the salespeople, whether it's your competitors or you'll all have access to these tools. So the game will move to a higher level. Okay, but you're still going to need people to talk with people. Okay. See, I'm an introvert, like I never stop saying on this channel, apparently. And if, the way I shop is that I would just go online, look at the facts and the statistics and a few pictures, and then I'd love to just be able to order my car. I've been waiting for mass customization for 30 years for automobiles. They were talking about that in the late 80s. They said it was right around the corner. It never happened. And I've been waiting for it. And what we have sucks because you still have to go down to a dealership and pick from a limited number of models, right? You can't just say, I want this car, this color, with the big good stereo, but with no air conditioning. And, you can't pick and choose like that. You just have 3 models to pick from. And they haven't been able to deliver that. So if they can't even deliver that, when that's totally possible, I really don't have high hopes that, AI is going to replace everybody. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, as well thought out and as well articulated as that response was, that's my thoughts on it. But thanks for your question. Everybody's freaking out about this. Everybody always freaks out about this. When, the internet came in, they said the same thing. Then social media came in, everybody said the same thing. This is going to replace everything. They're all going to be out of a job. Nobody's going to talk to anyone anymore. They're just going to do this stuff. Why do you need people? Why can't we all just do this? All business is going to be virtual, right? Well, did that happen? No, it didn't. It added the internet to ways you can do business and opened up a ton of things, but it didn't really terminate a lot of things that they were afraid of. Okay, so that's my opinion, certainly about the foreseeable future. Hopefully that helps. Yeah, so where were we here? We're talking about this stuff. So business basics. I remember being in my 20s and just not understanding what companies cared about. I remember talking to a coworker of mine, and we worked for a company, like a global company, and he was sharing with me his opinions of what the goals of the company were, and he believed that, like, well, if our company gets this bigger contract that we were wanting, it means more money, it means more prosperity for the company, so they should hire more people because that's what this is for. I remember him saying that to me, and I remember thinking, like, that makes sense, being in my early to mid 20s. And yeah, that's not how it works, right? Businesses exist to make money. That's what they do. And you might think that if the company makes more money, that means that there's more money for the employees. That's not how that works either, right? Employees are a cost, right? Imagine if you had a robot that did your work for you. Let's say you ran a warehouse and your job was to stock up various products and people would buy them from your warehouse, right? Almost like a supermarket, right? They basically are a big warehouse. You have all the fresh fruit and the cans of food and all the products, right? And you hold them, and then individuals come to your store and buy them, right? Very simple. So if you make more money, you would think, well, who would get the money? Well, the people working in the supermarket, right? In the warehouse. They would go to the employees. Nope. It's not how it works. Businesses are owned by individuals. And if you own the business, then you get the money. That's how that works. There's a difference between the owners and the employees. Now, in the simplest case, you have one owner. You have one person that owns a business. A lot of people, probably a good example would be people that buy food franchises. They'll buy their own donut shop. They'll own like a Starbucks, or they'll own a Burger King, or they'll own a McDonald's or something like that. That store actually belongs to them. They paid for it. Instead of buying a house, they bought that store. Okay? So that business now belongs to them. And you are in control of the business. Because you own it, you can decide everything about it. If you wanted to, you could close it down, you could fire all the employees, and you could burn the place to the ground if you wanted to. Okay? It's like owning a house. If you wanted to, you could burn your house to the ground, right? That's the authority you have, right? Now, in a business, okay, it includes more than just the building. You got the building, you got all the tools inside, right? But then usually part of the equation is you need people to make money, right? So people are like an expense. Just like instead of you would buy more furniture, you'd sort of pay for people, right? You decide how many employees you want or you need, and then you pay out your money for those people to come and work at your store every day, right? And if that business makes money because you own the business, you get to keep it. Okay? That's just how it works. That's how business works. That's the basics of business. Okay? If, on the other hand, the store does not make money, it actually loses money. That means that it costs more to run than the money that's coming in every day through the cash registers. Okay? Then you lose the money. Okay? You have to put up more money to keep the place running. It's just like you would put money into your house. Your house needs to be maintained. It needs repairs. Right? So you bought the house, but then you're putting money into it to maintain it. It requires this steady influx of cash to keep it working, right? Business is the same way, right? Let's go over to the chat because I see there's some stuff here. What do you think about the trend of ESG, environmental social governance? First of all, I'm not down with trends and fads. Is it worth to investigate some education in it as I consider a path in consulting in this area? Greetings from Munich, Germany. So this is from Super Fuchs, if I'm saying that right. or Spar Fuchs. Is that how you say that? I'm sure it isn't. Once again, I'm showing you my talent at mispronouncing names in new and exciting ways. Okay, so environmental is not a trend. Social, whatever the hell that means, is not a trend, okay? And governance is not a trend. Governance has been around for 500 years, if not longer. Environmental has been around since the beginning of the 20th century. And social, I don't know what you mean by social. Does that mean like public relations, or are you talking about employees like HR or whatever? Those things have been around for a while, a long time, almost as long as we've had business, okay, hundreds of years. So I don't know if there's some new trend that's like, all of a sudden it's a buzzword or something, but those have been around for a very long time. They are not going away anytime soon, okay? And they've always been around. So, and they're all valid, useful things that I would regard as almost essential. Environmental, I don't know if I would classify that as absolutely essential, depending where you are in the world and what the circumstances are. But increasingly, as we go into the future, it becomes much, much more important with every decade. Okay? Like, for example, I had a job over 10 years ago. I was for a company, I was not the CEO, I was the head of projects. So I was the head of the environmental organization, head of the safety organization, and head of the quality organization. And then I was responsible for special projects. So I know a bit about environmental and things like that from that. And yeah, I mean, whatever business you're in, I mean, if you're physically doing stuff, okay, even if you're like, you just have an office building, it's very important because the thing about environmental is that it's the only area, I believe, where if they create a new law now, okay, they've come out with a new law, the way it works is that there's no grandfather clause. So, even if your company did something 100 years ago, like they dumped oil into the ground or something, like you have a garage or something and they spilled oil on the ground and it soaked into the ground. That was done 100 years ago, okay, on land that you own. Well, if they pass a law now that says, like now the new standard is this, the new law is that if you contaminate somebody else's ground, you have to pay for the cost to clean it up or something. You can't say, oh, well, that happened 100 years ago, so therefore, we're exempted from that law. No, it applies to you now. So even though your company might have done something bad 100 years ago, you still have to fix it now and pay for it, right? So that gets increasingly important as we go into the future, because as you can imagine, companies are afraid of this. They're afraid of like, oh crap, what did we do 100 years ago that like tomorrow they could like all of a sudden say is bad and we are now responsible for it and we have to pay to fix it or clean it up. What did we do? Like what, let's really pay attention to prevention so that we don't, get saddled with sudden huge costs and restrictions and things. So yeah, I mean, that's important. These are all important things. If you particularly are fascinated by these areas, okay, sure, you can go into it. I mean, it's not going to go away if that's what you're asking. These are all very important. But like governance works at the highest level, okay, of private companies, corporate governance, that's like at the highest level. You could maybe study it in school and stuff, but you don't really get to practice it until you're like at the very tops of companies, right? Or possibly you work in the accounting and auditing financial kind of area, right? So hopefully that makes sense. Means saving Fox. Okay. So no, just Google ESG. No, I'm not going to Google ESG. Is it a framework? I don't know. So yeah, I mean, it's these things are important. They've been around forever. They're going to be around for the foreseeable future. If you want to do it, sure, yeah. There's going to be a need for them, definitely. I think that the biggest growth area would probably be environmental and social. It wouldn't be governance. Okay, there's always been governance. There's always going to be governance. It's only really used for like mid-size or big companies, right? Where you've got a lot of different people and a lot of opportunities for people to do things like embezzling and, a lot of the stuff that, like the sort of financial crimes, right? Like insider trading and, stuff like that. Okay. Ike Leonard Less says, thanks for your reply. One more thing. How will traditional corporate, mostly offline jobs need to evolve to stay relevant in an increasingly digitized world? Again, in an automotive OEM setting. Well, once again, that's a very general question. I mean, a general question is going to get a general answer, and that answer is probably not going to be helpful to your specific situation. I mean, within what you just described, there's going to be both extremes. You're going to get some things that will disappear, and then you'll get some things that will be almost completely unaffected, right? So you need to get into the details to really have an intelligent conversation about it. I mean, they have been saying that for the last 40 years. In an increasingly digitized world, how is this going to change? And like I kind of said at the earlier in this stream, people have been freaking out about that stuff for the longest time, usually unnecessarily, right? Some things change, but a lot of stuff doesn't really. It means that a lot of people are going to have to learn new tools, and parts of their job are going to change, but it's not like we're going to get rid of certain jobs en masse, okay? Certainly for most things. There might be one or two exceptions in there. Okay, so in an automotive OEM setting, now you were the sort of sales, car sales thing. I don't think, like, look, the thing about sales is sales adapts to customer preferences, okay? So if people want to buy a car the way they've been buying cars for the last 50 years, where they go down to the dealership, they do a test drive, they talk to the salesperson gives them options, tells them what's a good deal, what's not. Like my understanding is that that's how people buy cars. Okay, you would know much better than me the ins and outs of that. Now, if despite new digital tools coming in, okay, as you put it, living in an increasingly digitized world, if the way customers want to buy cars changes, then sales will have to adapt to that, right? But if you feel that despite what AI and what other tools there are, customers still want to do a test drive before they buy a car. They're not just going to go to Amazon, find, whatever car model and say order, and then it's like delivered to your house. You know what I mean? So the big question there is, what are customer preferences going to be in the future? Are they going to change? They might give you new tools, but if it doesn't affect the way people behave when they want to buy a car, then nothing really will change substantially on your end. Okay? And I can't answer that specific question. I don't know the car sales world that well. I've never worked in it, but I suspect it won't. The reason I say that is because, like, how they bought a car in the 1940s, okay, like 80 years ago, whatever, it seems like that's still basically how people buy cars today, right? They haven't gone to this model where they only look online and then they order it online. You know what I mean? Like they still go down to a dealership, they test drive a car, they talk to a person there. The person there provides some value by, giving you answers to questions or whatever. You know what I mean? So it hasn't changed since 1940 yet, really. I mean, yeah, there's been things that have new tools. You can now go to the website, you can see availability of vehicles, you can order it from there once you've done the test drive. but it basically hasn't changed yet. So I haven't heard of anything that really will change any of that. That's just my opinion, my uninformed opinion. So if you know different in that area, that'll inform what the answer is, in my opinion. Hopefully that's somewhat useful. Okay. Yeah. So getting back to Spar Fuchs there. Sure. Like, okay, you're telling me this is like a new trend or it's a new thing. Okay. Maybe you're right. Maybe your people are talking about a new buzzword or something. But what I'm telling you is that those three things have been around forever and they're going to be around forever. There's no like huge, massive trend in that area, in any of those areas. The one that's evolving, I think, the quickest is environmental, right? Because that definitely has been a trend that's happened in the last 20 years. People have really, like in the business world, people have really paid attention to environmental. And I'm not talking about, public relations. I'm talking about things that matter. It's not about perception. I'm talking about what's actually going on, right? Like, for example, if you have a business where, something is physically done. It's a manufacturing business. You've got some kind of factory or some operation. Okay, you're using chemicals, you're using equipment, you're using hazardous materials, you're producing waste. There's some kind of industrial process going on. Okay, there's been a lot of laws that have come in that says, you can't do this, or we're going to audit you every month. We're going to do a complete inspection. We're going to sample the water that's in the drains on your property, and we're going to analyze it in the lab, and we're going to look at, what are the elements in there. If there's any dangerous substances, we're going to impose these penalties, or we're going to require that you do certain cleanup things. A lot of those rules have really come in, and I think it's a great thing. And because of that, at least where I am in Canada, because of that, it's great, because you see a lot of businesses that are really paying attention to this. If you want businesses to pay attention to things like environmental stuff, like don't flush heavy metals into the water supply, like things like this, it's great that they've brought in these laws, because you see business. I've seen this. I've been on the forefront of this. You see businesses really scrambling to do things properly. Okay. If you have to clean up some kind of thing, some mess you've made where you've flushed oil into the ground or into the sewers, or, something like that, some chemical, it like literally costs, $20 to not do it in the first place, but it costs you $20,000 to clean it up, So businesses have really sat up and paid attention to this, because now it's costing them money if they screw it up. And you've seen an incredible change in their behavior, for the better, which is great. So I think there's going to be a lot more of that. I think it's great. And, there's going to be a lot of people. You need a lot of people that understand the laws. You need a lot of people that understand how to mitigate some of those issues. You need a lot of people in the whole ecosystem that provide tools and services that will help with that stuff. So, it's great all around, and it's just great for society. You know what I mean? So like everybody wins, right? And businesses can use it as a marketing tool and say like, look, we are super clean. We do everything right. As a customer, you could get satisfaction buying our product because that we've never had an issue with our environmental rules, and we do everything to a very high standard. And, it just makes sense for us, because if we don't, we're not nearly as profitable. So, that's the area I think that's evolving a lot more rapidly than the others. Governance is very slow moving. It's like banking. It's very slow moving. It's been essentially the same for hundreds of years. Social, it changes, but in a superficial way. The tools are new, like fashion trends and things like that. The businesses follow, those evolve, but fundamentally it's the same. So yeah. Okay, well, hopefully that makes sense. We did cover some of the basics of business. I think it's a really cool topic. There's a lot of people that don't understand, so just the basics. If you've worked in a business, you've had a job, that doesn't mean that you necessarily, know how business works. You might think you do because you see a little piece of it, but you don't really know until you've done it yourself. So thank you for joining me today. This is where we're going to leave it. We'll take one last question. Okay, just got one last question here from Denver Holdcroft. That's an awesome name. Sir Denver Holdcroft Esquire IV says, hello, I'm a teller at a bank and I'm worried that the opportunities that were mentioned in the beginning are far and few between. How long should I wait in hopes to get a promotion? The opportunities that were mentioned in the beginning, what are you referring to? Okay, you're talking about the basics of business? Is that what you're talking about? Because that has nothing to do with a promotion. So I'm just wondering what you're referring to. I have no idea how long you should wait to get a promotion. Promotions, in theory, it shouldn't be a matter of time. It should be a matter of performance. But I don't know how it works in your particular bank or your employer. So sorry, I can't answer that one for you. The best way to get an answer to that would be to look at historically, obviously, I'm sure you probably know this already, but you would look at, in the past, similar people in that position, how long have they had to wait? And what was their performance like? And was there anything else going on? Did they have some kind of special relationship with a decision maker that decides these things, right? If they did, you may need to replicate that. Okay. So that would be the best way to get answers to that question for your specific situation, is look at historically what's been going on. And another thing you can do, whether the situation permits or whether it's appropriate in your particular situation, is directly address this with the decision maker and say, hello, you do everything right. I'm not going to go into every little tiny detail, but basically you do everything right, and you basically bring up that, look, I very much am gunning for a promotion. I'm very interested in getting promoted. It's a big thing for me, and I would like to know what is required of me. I would like to know what your prediction would be. Is that something that's going to happen, or it's not really going to happen? Or if you could give me information on precisely what I need to do for that to happen for me, I'd very much appreciate it, because I'm very interested in doing it. Something like that. And then the person knows, okay, this person is wanting a promotion. They're gunning for it specifically. That's important to them. And they're wanting to have an increase in performance to earn that promotion. Signaling that, number one, gives you points with that decision maker in general. And number two, it has intrinsic value, because then they will tell you exactly what you need to do to make that happen, right? So there are some things like that you can do. But if you're wanting to know what the odds are, look at historically how it's worked for people in that place, in your position, how long they've needed to be there or something. Neo100 says, thanks for the broadcast. I found out what happened to the last failed business. Okay, good. Ike Leonard Less says, if you're not tired of my automotive questions yet, I'm never tired of questions. That's why I do this. You ask away, Ike. What do you think are the trends and consulting needs that the industry needs from a sales and marketing perspective? Which gaps need to be closed? Okay, so listen, you know what? This is something I've talked about before on my other live stream, the one that's coming up in 5 minutes. It doesn't matter what I think of your industry, in your country, in your situation. I won't know the details of that, okay? But if you want to get a very detailed, specific, and accurate answer to this, okay, which it's certainly an intelligent question. You're basically wondering about your prospects if you were to do consulting in that area, okay? You need to get answers for that. And the way you do that is to talk to people, okay? Now, I don't mean necessarily talk to people within your circle. Okay. If you're just moving in the circle of like a dealership, with other salespeople, maybe the sales manager, maybe even the owner of the dealership or something, I don't know. You need to maybe go outside of that. Okay. Go to leasing companies that buy tons and tons of vehicles and they sell them. Okay. Or they lease them. All the players in that business, the CEOs, the executives in those, learn how to network, learn how to connect with these people, how to find out who they are. Like I talk about that extensively on this channel. I talk about that in that course, the Get Hired course, where we talk about networking, how to find out who these people are that have these kinds of this type of information. They know exactly what you're wanting to find out because they would be your potential clients. Okay. So they can tell you, like, look, we are interested in having a consultant help us solve this particular problem. Okay. We don't know who would know that. We don't know, like if we get that wrong, we know it's very expensive for us. It's a very expensive failure for us if we make the wrong decision in that area. But so anyone who can help us on that would be something we would pay for, right? What would convince us to hire them? Well, we can tell you exactly what would convince us to hire that person and how it would work, right? So they know what you're trying to find out. All you got to do is connect with them, get in the same room with them, have a free-flowing conversation, and ask them some of these questions. If you were in the same room, you would say things like, what's the biggest headache for you guys, the biggest unknown when you're trying to decide what fleet of leased vehicles you should buy? Like what element is the biggest unknown, the biggest source of uncertainty that's the most costly for you guys? And then you ask them, like, what do you think the solution to that is? Do you think consulting would be the solution? And if they say no, we're opposed to consultants, that tells you something. If they say yes, but we don't know who to hire, who would know that? I don't know if there's someone I would trust to tell me that. You say, okay, well, what would it take? What would that person have to say for you to trust them? And they say, well, they'd have to tell me that they worked in that business for 20 years or something, and they knew this was their role, and they know this, or something like that. So they have the information that you want. It's a matter of you connecting with those people and getting in the same room, getting an informational interview, and then being able to ask these questions and getting answers. And not just doing this to 1 or 2 people, but 10, 20, 30 over the period of a couple months. So learn how to do that, and that will give you the specific answers you're looking for, okay? Between Google Maps, LinkedIn, and basic knowledge of networking, you can do this, okay? That's what I talk about. So you could either check out that course where I give the whole thing sort of beginning to end, or you could tune into some of the free videos I have on my channel and some of the live streams I've done where we've gone into detail about how to do that very thing, okay? So hopefully that helps. I have to go now, guys. Thanks for being here. I will be back next week with more of this. Check out my courses if you're interested in learning business, or if you're just trying to get hired, you're trying to learn networking. That's this course. This is something that I created for aspiring entrepreneurs. It's a way to learn business properly from the source without having to spend 2 years in university getting a master's of business administration. Okay, thanks very much. I will be back next week at the same time. Take care.